you clearly have talked to your children about your dying. I mean, I work with people who are dying, and one of the things they find difficult is talking to their family members about their dying, because there's this, I think it's a kind of magical thinking that if I talk about your dying, if you have a terminal illness, it'll somehow hasten your death. And so we need to talk about how medicine is amazing, you fight, you keep going. And when I talk to the people that are dying, they're sort of tearful and frustrated because they can't talk to their partners about the fears that they have. And their partners, there's this co-protection between them and their children or their partners, where everyone is pretending. But then when the person dies, the people who've survived them kind of regret not having those conversations. Like, was he frightened? What did they believe? Did they want to be buried or cremated? So I wonder, do you have ideas about what Catherine Mannix calls having tender conversations with the people that we love that were dying?
Well, I suppose I had an advantage in that I did a programme for the BBC called "We Need to Talk About Death," and that's part of my career. So we talk about death. How do we like the funeral to go? I've said, I'd like everyone to sing Jerusalem.
That's a good one, yeah.
Can you make sure that the congregation sings Jerusalem, and make sure that you sing out loud and clear? I don't want you to be sobbing away. I want you to be singing robustly. So I think that's quite nice. And also, I've got a lot of friends who aren't religious, but they like beauty. They see beauty in things that perhaps we don't notice so much. So I've known people, as it were, get their funerals ready, choose the readings, choose the poetry, choose the music. And I think that's very consoling and very moving. And I've got lots of in the drawer here. I always keep the service of, and most of them choose T.S. Eliot, believe it or not.
Yes.
Lots and lots of people choose T.S. Eliot. I'm not having T.S. Eliot. I think a little Byron would suit me more my style.
Yeah. But it is a way of loving your family or the significant people in your life into their future after you've died, isn't it? By kind of having those preparations, or even having those conversations, or that I want Byron, I would like this. And that beauty, I think beauty, like death, is universal. Beauty is a kind of universal consolation that can touch our heart when we're really suffering. And that in some ways, funerals, while they're rituals to kind of mark someone's death, they're also ways of coming together to feel the beauty of the music and the words that have gone down for sort of centuries before us, which is incredibly important in both facing the reality of the death, but also consoling us.
Yes, I had to organise my father's funeral. I was very close to my father, and so was my sister. We were both heartbroken at his death. But he always talked about his life, which had been quite humdrum and quite deprived as a child. He was an orphan, and he had to struggle as a child, an elder brother looking after his brothers. And what would he like? And I remember my sister and I chose to organise, I don't know how we did it, but we got a brilliant soloist to stand at the altar and sing, "I know that my Redeemer liveth."
Oh my goodness, yeah, beautiful.
Well, you know, the message of that is absolutely transcendent. I mean, it's a great piece of religious music, but it's not a church service piece. I mean, we had to organise it with the permission of the vicar and the presiding ceremony. But it was staggering, and people were deeply moved by that. And they felt that that was consolation for my father as well, who was there in the coffin.
And I think there is also something about hearing and listening and singing together that is very kind of heart connecting, because grief is so isolating and chilly. And I think that was one of the awful things about COVID, were these awful funerals that had 7 or 8 people, and that you couldn't really have that closeness of the person next to you and hearing each other's voice, which is very kind of calming.